Welcome to a free on-demand webinar presented by Michigan Alliance for Families. We partner with experts from across the state to offer live webinars to help answer the questions we encounter most frequently. Our webinars are recorded and archived for future viewing. Handouts for our webinars can be requested through our webpage, michiganallianceforfamilies.org/webinar. Remember to keep up with Michigan Alliance for Families on social media and be sure to check out the other videos on our YouTube channel. Follow-up questions to this webinar can be directed to us at info@michiganallianceforfamilies.org. Today's webinar is Early On Records and Confidentiality of Information with Stacy Rulison. Welcome, Stacy.
Hello and thank you. You have selected a webinar today in a series of webinars related to Early On. Early On is Michigan's early intervention program for helping families whose infants and toddlers have developmental delays or are at risk due to certain health conditions. Early On's Michigan Early Intervention Program is covered by the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA as it's often called, under Part C of this federal law. The purpose of the webinar is to provide you with information related to your rights under the law. This is number 2 of 4 webinars, further explaining your rights. These include procedural safeguards, parental consent, prior written notice, and the records and confidentiality, which we will be discussing today. There are a number of objectives in sharing information from this webinar we hope that participants will gain. We hope that participants will be informed about the family and child's rights to confidentiality, be informed about parental consent for sharing personal information about your child or your family, be informed of how information can be shared about your child, be informed about your rights to review your child's records, and how you can change your child's record. There are also some additional resources that can be found at the Michigan Alliance for Families website. For example, access to Early On Procedural Safeguards Protecting Families' Rights document, or accessing from the page Your Family Has Rights brochure from the website. Other resources related to procedural safeguards, which include records and confidentiality, are also on this page. Your rights include options for seeing, changing, and sharing your family's records. You have rights to confidentiality and access to your child's records, confidentiality of information that identify you or your child, providing consent and to be informed when information is shared about your record, and reviewing all records about you and your family. Several agencies and programs may provide services to your child and family during your time with Early On. Remember, information collected about you and your child, such as evaluations, family assessments, information on the IFSP or the Individualized Family Service Plan, medical information, and more, is confidential to you. Also be aware that any agency or program providing services during your time with Early On must keep records about you and your child and follow procedural safeguards related to confidentiality issues. Let's cover information regarding seeing your child's record. When you make a request to see your child's record, Early On must provide you with access to the record without necessary delay. So you have the right to see your child's record and access your child's record upon request. When making a request, Early On must provide that access without delay no more than 10 calendar days after your request. They must provide a list of types and locations where Early On records are kept, provide an explanation if you do not understand the records, allow you to have someone of your choice to see the records, and allow you to see the record unless the agency has a court order indicating you do not have the right to see the record. If you believe that information in your child's record is not correct or should be changed, you can request a change. Early On must review the request and either change the record or let you know the record will not be changed, and you have a right to a hearing to try to resolve that issue. They must comply with the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, which is often called FERPA. You can also have a hearing agency determine whether the record is accurate, not accurate, misleading, or is a violation of rights. Early on might need to share information about your child and family in order to make referrals for additional supports and services, or to collect information on your child's health and development from other sources, or coordinate services, or sometimes transfer information within an agency from one program to another. Here's additional information on sharing information about your child that are important for you to know. Some information is shared automatically, such as with the Michigan Department of Education, Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and local school districts. Some information is only shared with your permission, such as providing to anyone other than an authorized individual or agency. The information is used only to meet requirements for early on. And the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, or FERPA, is a federal law that protects the privacy of student education records. Additionally, it is important for you to know that sometimes you need to give permission for information to be shared about your child. However, you do not have to give consent. Here are some examples. You must sign an authorization to release early on record information, request for information, or a non-health form, or requests for protected information, also a health form. You can change your mind and withdraw consent. You do not have to give consent to share. If you're not providing consent to share information, you will sign a form to assure your choice is clear. It may limit the ways in which early on can help your family, so this is something you need to be aware of. Additional information that is important for you to know when sharing your child's information related to early on records and your child include: when early on services end, your records are kept for a minimum of 7 years, and until services end, documentation is no longer needed by law, all monitoring activities have been concluded, or there are no outstanding requests for record review. Records can only then be destroyed. There are unique identification codes that may be kept indefinitely and include the child's name, birth date, contact information, early intervention provider information, and exit information. Here are some additional resources that can be found on the Early On website at the link provided on the screen. For example, Early On Michigan Family Guidebook has a lot of information that may be helpful, including information on records and confidentiality. The procedural safeguards protecting families' rights for early on. List of established conditions, a request for state complaint investigation form, early intervention, early on due process complaint procedures, a prior written notice, early on parental consent, authorization to release early on records, early on parental consent for developmental screening, and much more.
Thank you, Stacy. Michigan Alliance for Families is an IDEA grant-funded initiative of the Michigan Department of Education, Office of Special Education, and Michigan's Federal Parent Training and Information Center, funded by the U.S. Department of Education, Office of Special Education Programs. Follow-up questions to this webinar can be directed to us at info@michiganallianceforfamilies.org or contact us through our 800 number, 1-800-552-4821. Thank you.